12. The stupidest cars of the 1950s. You never seen before. Some of the worst cars in American history came from its most celebrated decade, and only real muscle car fans truly know which ones. Do you? The 1950s marked a golden era of post-war optimism in America. Cars weren't just transportation. They were rolling status symbols, lifestyle statements, and bold visions of the future. Automakers raced to create machines that looked like they belonged in science fiction. But for every design triumph, there were a few disasters. Some looked futuristic, but drove like a bad idea, made real. Today, we're diving into some of the most misguided cars in American automotive history. Not to mock them, but to understand the technical flaws, design oversights, and corporate missteps that made them unforgettable. Subscribe to Muscle Car Masters and let's dig into the cars Detroit would rather you forget. (1950) Ford Crestliner. In the early 1950s, Ford was scrambling to make a splash in the post-war car boom. Their answer, the 1950 Ford Crestliner, a flashy attempt to inject style into their sedan lineup. But when you peel back the vinyl roof and chrome trim, the Crestliner was all sizzle, no steak. Under the hood sat a 239 cubic inch flathead V8 rated at 100 horsepower and 180 pound-feet of torque, paired with a 3-speed manual transmission. Power was sent to the rear wheels through a conventional solid rear axle. It weighed 3,330 pounds, making performance modest at best. The Crestliner clocked 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 17.5 seconds, and the quarter mile in roughly 21.5 seconds, far from sporty. Even in its day, braking relied on 4-wheel drum brakes, and the suspension setup was basic independent coil, springs up front, and leaf springs in the rear. No power steering or power brakes were offered as standard. Ford hyped it as a sports sedan with flair thanks to a vinyl-covered roof and 2 tone color options, but underneath it was just a gussied-up Ford Custom. The interior offered little over cheaper trims, no unique dash, no special instrumentation, no performance upgrades. Compared to the smoother Chevy style line, with its more refined ride, or the value-packed Plymouth Concorde, the Crestliner fell flat. Buyers saw through the gimmicks, and sales quickly dropped off. Did your parents or grandparents ever drive a Crestliner? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more deep cuts in American car history. (1951) Mercury Monterey. The 1951 Mercury Monterey had movie star looks, sleek lines, wide chrome grille, and a formal roofline that screamed style. Ford positioned it as a step up from their base sedans, but just shy of a Lincoln targeting middle-class buyers seeking a hint of luxury. Under the hood, it ran a 255 cubic inch flathead V8, producing 112 horsepower and 200 pound-feet of torque. Buyers had a choice of a 3-speed manual or the optional Merc-O-Matic automatic transmission. But at around 3,500 pounds, the Monterey struggled to move with urgency. 0 to 60 miles per hour came in at 18.2 seconds, and it took more than 22 seconds for the quarter mile. Its suspension was a carryover from basic Ford models. Independent coil, springs up front, leaf, springs out back, and 4-wheel drum brakes all around. Handling was sluggish with heavy steering and body roll on corners. The plush interior looked good, but lacked any real innovation or tech edge. For the price, buyers expected more than just looks. With no standout performance or features, the Monterey faded fast. It became known as a fashion-first cruiser, a beautiful body that lacked the muscle to match. But the next car wasn't confused. It just couldn't decide what it was. (1959) Chevrolet El Camino. The 1959 Chevrolet El Camino was a bold idea on paper, combined the comfort of a coupe with the utility of a pickup. What GM delivered, though, was a vehicle that failed to do either job well. It was built on the Chevrolet Impala platform, sharing the same flamboyant X-frame chassis, long tail fins, and low-slung body. Power came from a base 235 cubic inch inline six with 135 horsepower, or optional 283, and 348 cubic inch V8s, pushing up to 315 horsepower with the tri-power setup. But even with that muscle, this rig wasn't built to haul. Despite looking tough, its payload capacity was under 1,200 pounds, and the shallow bed couldn't handle serious work. Ground clearance was low, the rear suspension used basic coil springs, and the frame lacked the rigidity of a proper truck. Performance wasn't inspiring either. 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 13.5 seconds, quarter mile in the high 19s, depending on engine choice. As a car, the cabin was cramped, and visibility was poor due to the sloping rear. It felt like a fashion statement without function, an identity crisis on four wheels. (1957) Lincoln Premier. If you wanted to make an entrance in 1957, the Lincoln Premier had your back. With massive chrome bumpers, quad headlights, and a towering grille. This car wasn't just bold, it was borderline arrogant. But when it came time to drive, the dream turned into a chore. Power came from a 368 cubic inch MEL V8, delivering 300 horsepower and 415 pound-feet of torque, paired with a 3-speed turbo-drive automatic transmission. Despite all that grunt, the car tipped the scales at 4,850 pounds, making it one of the heaviest sedans of its era. 0 to 60 miles per hour took around 13.8 seconds, and the quarter mile hovered just above 20 seconds. Hardly luxury performance. The Premier rode on a body-on-frame X-type chassis, with independent front suspension and leaf springs in the rear. But its sheer size, over 227 inches long, made urban maneuvering a nightmare. Braking with 4 wheel drums felt like asking permission to stop. Inside, it offered electric everything: windows, seats, antenna, but rivals like Cadillac were already experimenting with more forward-thinking tech. Lincoln had the flash, but not the innovation to match. And just when you think Detroit couldn't go further, oh, it absolutely did. (1958) Buick Limited. The 1958 Buick Limited was Detroit's ultimate flex, a chrome-drenched tank designed to outshine everything in sight. But instead of exuding class, it screamed desperation. Buick tried to go bigger, shinier, and bolder. What they built was a beached whale on white walls. Power came from a 364 cubic inch nailhead V8, pushing 300 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque, paired with the Dynaflow automatic transmission. At a monstrous 5,000 pounds curb weight, the Limited struggled to make use of that power. It needed nearly 14.5 seconds to hit 60 miles per hour, and the quarter mile came in just under 21 seconds. Not impressive for something billed as a flagship. The car was over 227 inches long, with a ride quality best described as floaty and vague. Its suspension, independent front coil springs, and rear coil springs offered comfort, but no control. And with 4-wheel drum brakes slowing this beast down, felt like pulling an anchor through molasses. Inside, It had leather seating, power accessories, and enough space to host a dinner party. But for the $5,000 plus price tag, buyers expected more than just flash. Buick sold only around 7,400 units before pulling the plug. But if you thought this was peak excess, wait until you meet Cadillac's most ridiculous convertible. (1955) Cadillac Eldorado Biarritz. In the golden era of American excess, the 1955 Cadillac Eldorado Biarritz was the king of glitz. A two-door convertible dripping in chrome gold accents and tail-fin swagger. It looked like success on wheels. But once you hit the road, the illusion began to crack. Power came from a 331 cubic inch OHV V8, rated at 270 horsepower and 345 pound-feet of torque, paired with a 4-speed Hydra-matic automatic transmission. Weighing nearly 4,900 pounds, performance was underwhelming. 0 to 60 miles per hour took over 13 seconds, and the quarter-mile dragged into the high 20s. The car was lavish but lazy. Suspension included independent front coils and semi-elliptical rear leaf springs built more for show than control. Brakes were the usual four-wheel drums, barely up to the task of managing the Biarritz's bulk. It rode like a yacht, and turned like one too. Inside leather everything, a wraparound windshield, and even gold trim. But the Biarritz's price tag crossed $6,200 in 1955, equal to nearly $70,000 today. That money bought flash, not performance. No real innovation, just an overpriced cruiser that lived for the valet line. Which of these 50s legends do you think was the most overrated? Drop a comment and subscribe now only on our channel. And if this Cadillac made you raise your eyebrows, the next Ford might just blow your fuse. 1957 Ford Skyliner Retractable. In the age of space-age optimism, the 1957 Ford Skyliner Retractable looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. It was the world's first mass-produced hardtop convertible with a fully powered retractable roof. But while the spectacle drew crowds, the reality was far from practical. The Skyliner was powered by a 312 cubic inch Y-block V8, producing up to 245 horsepower and 332 pound-feet of torque, mated to a 3-speed Ford O-matic automatic transmission. Weighing over 4,200 pounds, the car took nearly 14 seconds to reach 60 miles per hour and clocked the quarter mile in the low 21s, sluggish for a model that carried a price premium. The retractable roof mechanism was an engineering marvel. 7 electric motors, 6 locking mechanisms, 4 lift jacks, and over 600 feet of wiring. When it worked, it was dazzling, but if even one motor failed, the entire roof system froze. Worse, the stowed roof filled most of the trunk, making luggage space almost non-existent. The added weight from the mechanism reduced fuel efficiency, dulled handling, and increased braking distances. And with a base price near $3,000, buyers had to ask, was the mechanical complexity worth it? (1959) Cadillac Eldorado Brougham. In 1959, owning a Cadillac Eldorado Brougham wasn't just about driving, it was about making a statement. With a base price over $13,000, it cost more than the average house. But for all its opulence, it ended up being one of Cadillac's most extravagant disappointments. Under the hood sat a 390 cubic inch V8, rated at 345 horsepower and 430 pound-feet of torque. It was paired with a 4-speed Hydra-matic automatic and tipped the scales at over 5,200 pounds. Despite the powerful engine, the Brougham's performance felt muted. 0 to 60 miles per hour took around 13.5 seconds, and the quarter mile stretched well past 20 seconds. Luxury was the name of the game. The cabin featured stainless steel, trim leather, and wool upholstery, a power memory seat, and even perfume atomizers and cocktail tumblers. Each unit was hand-assembled, giving it a Rolls-Royce level of exclusivity. But beneath the glamour lurked constant headaches. The air suspension system was notoriously unreliable, sagging or collapsing entirely. Electric systems frequently failed, and replacement parts were nearly impossible to find. Cadillac only built 99 of them for that year, because even the elite didn't want the hassle. But what if a car promised speed, power, and style, and still couldn't deliver a thrill? (1956) DeSoto Adventurer. With a name like Adventurer, DeSoto aimed to attract thrill-seekers and performance lovers. And visually, the 1956 Adventurer delivered bold, two-tone paint, sweeping chrome accents, and an aggressive stance. It looked like it was built to chase Corvettes and Thunderbirds, but when the rubber met the road, the fantasy fell apart. The Adventurer was powered by a 341 cubic-inch Hemi V8, producing an impressive 320 horsepower and 450 pound-feet of torque. Mated to a two-speed power-flight automatic transmission, it launched with confidence. But at over 4,300 pounds, its 0 to 60 miles per hour time hovered around 10.5 seconds, and the quarter mile took over 18 seconds, respectable but not breathtaking for a supposed performance coupe. Its biggest weakness was the soft suspension and vague steering, which made the car feel more like a luxury cruiser than a sports machine. It leaned hard into corners and couldn't stop fast, either relying on basic four-wheel drum brakes. DeSoto promised a muscle car before the term even existed, but what buyers got was a boulevard cruiser in a flashy jacket, a mismatch of style and engineering. 1958 Lincoln Continental Mark III. The 1958 Lincoln Continental Mark III didn't just push the limits of luxury, it bulldozed them. At nearly 20 feet long and over 5,000 pounds, this car was more battleship than boulevard cruiser. It was Lincoln's bold swing to dethrone Cadillac, but it missed the mark by a mile. Power came from a 430 cubic-inch MEL V8 engine, delivering 375 horsepower and 490 pound-feet of torque. But with all that bulk, the numbers didn't translate to performance. It lumbered from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 12.7 seconds and took nearly 20.5 seconds to clear the quarter-mile fuel economy. Often under 9 miles per gallon, the chassis was body-on-frame with a long 131-inch wheelbase. Despite having 6-way power seats, power windows, and power trunk, the ride quality was floaty, the handling clumsy and braking distances dangerously long, especially with outdated four-wheel drum brakes. Design-wise, it was more fortress than finesse. Stubby tail fins, slab-sided panels, and a grille that looked like a medieval gate. The sheer scale made parking an ordeal, and city driving nearly impossible. It wasn't just excessive. It was impractical, overpriced, and underwhelming in almost every way. If you're loving this deep dive into forgotten disasters, hit like and subscribe. We're just getting started here on our channel. But if this chrome-covered Leviathan shocked you, the next one destroyed an entire brand. 1958 Edsel Pacer. The 1958 Edsel Pacer was supposed to be Ford's revolutionary middle-market brand meant to slot between Ford and Mercury. Instead, it became one of the most infamous flops in automotive history. And the Pacer. It was the poster child of everything that went wrong. Under the hood was a 361 cubic-inch FEV8, making 303 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque. It was mated to Ford's Teletouch push-button, automatic transmission, which oddly placed the gear selector in the center of the steering wheel. Sound futuristic. It was, but also fragile, unreliable, and dangerous. If it failed while driving, the Pacer's 0 to 60 miles per hour time was around 11.5 seconds, and the quarter mile took just over 19 seconds. Not bad, but nothing remarkable for its weight of nearly 4,300 pounds. Four-wheel drum brakes struggled to stop it quickly, and the build quality was all over the place. Misaligned panels, electrical gremlins, and rattling interiors were common. Then there was the styling. That horse collar grille became a national punchline. It looked bizarre out of place and downright awkward. Despite a massive marketing budget, the public wasn't buying literally or figuratively. The 1959 Edsel Ranger. The 1959 Edsel Ranger is the final nail in the coffin of Ford's most embarrassing failure. Meant to be the accessible model in the Edsel lineup, the Ranger ended up representing everything wrong with rushed innovation, misplaced design, and corporate overconfidence. Power came from a 292 cubic inch V8 rated at 200 horsepower and 285 pound-feet of torque, paired with a 2-speed automatic or optional 3-speed manual. It was underpowered for its 3,900-pound weight, pushing it from 0 to 60 miles per hour in a sluggish 14.5 seconds. The quarter mile took nearly 21 seconds, making it one of the slowest in its class. Build quality was poor. Panels didn't line up, dashboards rattled, and interior materials felt cheap. The Teletouch transmission returned still prone to failure. Even standard mechanical parts were troublesome, from faulty carburetors to misaligned suspension geometry. And then came the design. That infamous horse collar grille was still there. Bold, yes, but universally mocked. Buyers didn't see futuristic styling. They saw a clown face. Ford pulled the plug on Edsel by the end of the year. The Ranger wasn't just a bad car, it was a warning shot. A brutal lesson that even Detroit's giants weren't immune to failure when ego outpaced engineering. These cars weren't just design flukes or engineering missteps. They were full-blown reminders that even in America's most celebrated automotive decade, not every gamble paid off. For every beloved classic that roared through history, there were forgotten failures that stalled, leaked, rattled, and died quietly behind showroom walls. Some were too heavy, too weird, too ambitious, or just plain bad. But they all share one thing. They dared to dream and failed spectacularly. Which one shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Muscle Car Masters for more raw, unfiltered automotive history.